Ok, donc comme je vous l'ai dit, il existe deux versions de Copilot. La première version de Copilot est une version gratuite. Dans ce cas-là, il vous faut juste un abonnement Microsoft 365 et vous aurez l'accès à Copilot Chat. Par contre, si vous voulez par exemple vous connecter à des connecteurs, genre des sites SharePoint ou des documents que vous avez dans OneDrive, ça sera payant. Sinon, vous avez la version Copilot 365 à 30 euros et là, vous avez la possibilité d'utiliser Copilot au sein de Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, Teams. Vous pouvez créer des agents, vous avez l'analytique au niveau Copilot et vous avez le studio Copilot. Hein, donc, ça veut dire que vous avez bien deux versions qui sont différentes. Alors, c'est quoi Copilot? Copilot, c'est une solution qui va vous permettre de créer des contenus rapidement, de pouvoir focuser sur vraiment votre productivité. Copilot, en fait, compte, va transformer la façon dont vous travaillez parce qu'il va vous permettre d'utiliser le même langage que vous utilisez avec ChatGPT, mais au sein de vos documents, directement en utilisant des LLM, vous vous souvenez, les Large Language Volume, et surtout l'avantage, c'est qu'il va pouvoir se connecter à tous vos documents, puisqu'il se connecte à Microsoft Graph, ça veut dire que je vais pouvoir me connecter à du OneNote, du Word, de l'Excel, de Outlook, du PowerPoint, et pouvoir booster ma productivité. Quelques exemples qu'on peut faire dans Outlook, c'est par exemple faire un sommaire d'un ensemble de mails qui sont très longs à lire. Dans PowerPoint, créer une présentation top. Dans Word, réécrire un paragraphe dans un style différent. Et par exemple, dans Team, pouvoir faire un sommaire, par exemple, d'un meeting ou d'un chat fluide. Je vous montre une vidéo tout de suite. On va lancer ensemble. C'est parti.
Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365 leverages large language models that interact with your data using the Microsoft Graph and optionally the Internet
Mhm.
to generate personalized experiences with related context as you work, reducing the otherwise manual steps to find the information you need to get up and running fast. So, what makes this all possible? Copilot for Microsoft 365 provides a powerful orchestration engine and combines the power of large language models, your universe of data via Microsoft Graph, the Internet, and your Microsoft 365 apps. The Microsoft Graph has long been foundational to Microsoft 365. It includes information about the relationships and activities over your organization's data. It works together with the semantic index for Copilot to orchestrate information retrieval. Discovered information along with the original user prompt is then presented back to the large language model to generate an informed response, which is then returned back to the corresponding app. Importantly, Copilot for Microsoft 365 only uses information that you explicitly have access to, and it respects the security and compliance controls that you have in place with Microsoft 365. Information used while you work with Copilot for Microsoft 365 will never be used to train the large language model, and that also means that your chat history is not retained by the large language model.
Ok, donc on vient de voir que c'est voilà, système de comment ça fonctionne. On continue, donc on a vu que en fait compte, qu'est-ce que vous devez avoir? Il faut l'entra, donc il faut des comptes dans votre abonnement Microsoft 365, il faut des licences. Vous pouvez utiliser vos applications 365 apps ou vos applications qui sont installées sur vos postes de travail, c'est-à-dire Excel, Word, etc. OneDrive, Outlook, Teams. Alors, n'oubliez pas que pour pouvoir activer Teams et pour pouvoir suivre par exemple des réunions que vous aurez loupées et pour pouvoir voilà que de demander à copilote de quoi parle la réunion, eh bien il faudra activer la transcription et le record pour que ça fonctionne. On en parlera plus tard. Ok, donc il faut activer le transcription et recording pour que pour que Copilot puisse accéder à la réunion. On peut l'avoir dans Loop, on peut l'avoir dans Whiteboard, on peut l'avoir dans OneNote. Et si vous êtes très technique, vous pouvez l'avoir dans GitHub, dans sécurité, dans Power BI, Power Apps, etc. tout. Alors comment fonctionne le principe? Je vais vous montrer un petit peu ça dans une vidéo. Euh, le principe est relativement simple. Si on regarde le petit graphisme que vous avez actuellement à l'écran, donc je vais vous expliquer un petit peu comment ça fonctionne. Si on résume ici, eh bien, Copilot reçoit une invitation. Ok, donc Copilot va recevoir une invitation. Donc on voit en 1 qu'il reçoit une invitation. Donc on voit ici donc que vous avez le 1. Donc là, chez vous, vous envoyez, je sais pas, un prompt, hein. Salut, est-ce que tu pourrais me résumer tel document? Ensuite, Copilot, il va pré-traiter ensuite l'invité de saisie grâce à un protocole appelé grounding. Ok, donc ici le grounding qui améliore la spécificité de l'invité pour vous aider à obtenir des réponses pertinentes et exploitables pour votre tâche. L'invité peut inclure du texte provenant de fichiers d'entrée ou d'autres contenus découverts par Copilot et Copilot envoie cet invité au LLM. Ok, donc c'est important puisque Copilot va recevoir cet invité et va l'envoyer au LLM, le grand langage de modèle. Copilot accède uniquement aux données auxquelles l'utilisateur individuel a déjà accès, en fonction par exemple des contrôles d'accès basés sur les rôles Microsoft 365. Copilot prend la réponse, ok, donc prend la réponse et la sous-traite. C'est post-traitement comprend d'autres appels de grounding à Microsoft Graph. Euh, Ici, donc on a encore du grounding Microsoft Graph. Les examens de sécurité, de conformité, confidentialité et Copilot renvoie la réponse à l'application, puisque la réponse est envoyée ensuite à l'application. Euh, et effectivement, l'utilisateur peut examiner et évaluer la réponse. Donc, je vous propose de voir une vidéo par rapport à ça.
Have you ever wanted to know how large language models work when you connect them to the data in your organization? At Microsoft, we recently demonstrated Microsoft 365 Copilot, which transforms how we work by leveraging large language models that interact with your organizational data. Copilot works alongside you. For example, in Word, Copilot can easily write an entirely new document, like a business proposal, using content from your existing files. Or in Outlook, based on content you select, Copilot can compose your email replies for you. In PowerPoint, you can transform your written content into a visually beautiful presentation with a click of a button. In Teams, Copilot can generate meeting summaries with discussed follow-up actions. Or while using Business Chat in Microsoft Teams, it can help you catch up on something you may have missed, bringing together information from multiple sources to bring you up to speed. If you're wondering how large language models know what they know in these scenarios, let me break down the mechanics of what makes this possible and how the process respects your privacy and keeps your data safe with Microsoft 365 Copilot. First, let's look at where large language models, or LLMs, get their knowledge. LLMs are trained on massive amounts of public data, including books, articles, and websites, to learn language, context, and meaning. You can interact with large language models using natural language with what's called a prompt. A prompt is typically a statement or question. When you ask a question in the prompt, the LLM generates a response based on its public data training and understanding of context, which can come in part from how you phrase your prompt. For example, you might give it more details to generate a response. As you continue to ask questions and get responses, the large language model is temporarily getting more context. Your full conversation gets sent with each subsequent prompt, so the LLM can generate relevant responses as you chat with it. It's processing natural language and referring to its knowledge like we would in a conversation. A key difference is that it only remembers the conversation while it's in that conversation. The chat history is wiped clean with each new conversation. And it won't use the knowledge from your conversations and interactions to train the model. That said, you can also write your prompt to include additional information, which the large language model will refer to as it generates its response. This is how you can give the LLM a little more knowledge it might need to answer your question. I'll show you how this works using Microsoft Bing Chat's GPT-enabled public service that has no affiliation with your organization's data. First, I'll ask it a completely random question that it can't answer. What color shirt am I wearing today? And it responds intelligently. It knows what a shirt is, but it can't see me to answer my question, so it responds accordingly, which is an accurate response. Let me ask the question again, this time including some additional information in my prompt. I'll describe my outfit. Now you can see it responds using the information I gave it, which is more in line with what I was looking for. And now that it has the context, I can keep asking it related questions like, what color shoes? Again, that's because the prompt builds with each interaction. And to prove the large language model doesn't retain the information, I'll start a new chat session and ask it again. What color shirt am I wearing today? And now it again says, I can't see you, so I don't know. It knew what shirt I was wearing before only because I temporarily provided that additional limited information. In this new session, it no longer has access to what I said before, and I never told it my shirt color, so it doesn't know. So how does this work then in the context of Microsoft 365 Copilot? In my previous example using Bing Chat, I provided the prompt more information and context to give the LLM what it needed to generate the right response. This is what the Microsoft 365 Copilot system does automatically for you as you interact across different app experiences. To do this, Copilot has several core components. First off are the large language models hosted in the Microsoft Cloud via the Azure OpenAI service. To be clear, Copilot is not calling the public OpenAI service that powers ChatGPT. Microsoft 365 Copilot uses its own private instances of the large language models. Next, Microsoft 365 Copilot has a powerful orchestration engine that I'll explain in a moment. Copilot capabilities are surfaced in and work with Microsoft 365 apps. Microsoft Search is used for information retrieval to feed prompts, like I did in the example before, where information I provided in my prompt was used to help generate an answer. Then, the Microsoft Graph, which has long been foundational to Microsoft 365, includes additional information about the relationships and activities over your organization's data. The Copilot system respects per-user access permissions to any content and graph information it retrieves. This is important because Microsoft 365 Copilot will only generate responses based on information that you have explicit permission to access. Additionally, Microsoft 365 has its own default prompt with responsible rules for interaction. This includes things like where to search to find the right information for a prompt. For example, calling the Microsoft Graph to gain more context, like your recent documents or messages. Also, the style and tone of the response, including things like being informative for style and positive for tone, as well as different approaches that Copilot can take to gather information for the prompt. For example, it can choose to iterate on a few different searches until there's enough information for it to generate a good response. Copilot knows how it should cite its sources, and of course, respects responsible AI practices, such as ensuring harmful content is not included in generated responses. Importantly, this default prompt gets appended to your prompt whenever you interact with Copilot. The Microsoft 365 Copilot Orchestrator combines the default prompt with your prompt, plus additional information it's gathered, and will form one long prompt to present to the LLM in order to generate a response. Now let's go back to the example you saw earlier in Microsoft Teams where a user asked, "Did anything happen yesterday with Fabricam?" Copilot didn't just send that question or prompt directly to the large language model. Instead, Copilot knew that it needed more knowledge and context, so using clues from the user's question, like Fabricam, it inferred that it needed to search for content sources private to the organization. The Copilot Orchestrator searched the Microsoft Graph for activities, ensuring it respected the user's permissions and access to information, in this case, the user Kat. It found the email thread from Mona that Kat received, activities in the project checklist and March planning presentation, which are files that Kat had access to, as well as the sharing action where the final contract was sent to Fabricam for review, again, where Kat would have been part of the share activity. And Copilot cited each source of information so Kat could easily validate the response. These are all individual steps that Kat could have done manually, like searching her inbox for emails from Mona, looking at recent project file activities in SharePoint, or reading the sharing notifications sent to Fabricam for the contract. Copilot removed the tediousness of performing these steps manually and formulated a natural, easy-to-follow, and concise response in a single step. So that's how business chat with Copilot works. Now, in the examples I showed you earlier, you also saw how Microsoft 365 Copilot can help save you time in the apps you're working in by generating content. In fact, let's go back to the Copilot in Word example to explain how that worked. Microsoft 365 Copilot can help generate a draft proposal by using content you've been working on, for example, in OneNote or other documents that you have access to, like Word or PowerPoint files. Here, we combine the large language model's training on how a proposal document is structured and written with Microsoft 365 Copilot orchestration, which scans and takes relevant inputs from additional documents you've selected, adding the information to the prompt. The LLM is then able to generate an entirely new proposal document with the additional information from those files, providing a first draft that you can use to save time and quickly get started. And just like with the business chat example, the important thing to remember here is that the enterprise data.
Voilà. Donc on a vu cette vidéo intéressante. Ce que je vous propose, c'est de faire une deuxième vidéo. On va voir un petit peu à quoi sert le Copilot Chat. Donc je vous dis à tout de suite.